learn how to get a skill set that allows you to cope and live with people that are trolling you, people that don't want to see you be successful, and a lot of times these people are not even in your circle anyway. So don't let that anxiety, because you could feel the anxiety of like opening up your app. We've been getting a lot of messages about anxiety, and anxiety is a real sensitive topic, right? But it's also a topic that's never talked about.
It's true.
But anxiety is really real, and there's certain levels to anxiety that people go through in their life. So some people are at the extreme of anxiety, and then you have some people that are at the very beginning part. So today, we're going to have an opportunity, Ryan, to be able to talk to our guests, talk to the people that are watching the show, and kind of get feedback. We want you guys to be able to send messages, drop comments below to interact with us so we know what we're looking at when we come to anxiety.
Yeah, I'm excited about today's show. It's not something I thought I'd actually be doing at any point, but
Right.
I guess when we were talking and I mentioned that I grew up with anxiety disease,
Yeah.
I've never had more comments or not comments, messages from people hitting me up on DMing me on Instagram, just being like, "How'd you get through this? I have bad anxiety and I can't do this or I can't do that," and asking me all kinds of questions. And I didn't realize how many people actually suffer from anxiety because it's really hard. And so I realized it's more messages than any topic I've ever talked about.
Right.
And I think I'm excited. I think we can help a lot of people from what I'm seeing.
It's not only anxiety from just people that are everyday people, but from a sports perspective, looking at the anxiety that people go through from the sports world, from boxing, from tennis, volleyball, men's basketball, football, and also we don't want to leave out the coaches' anxiety. So
Yeah.
coaches having to deal with winning and losing.
Can you imagine? That's like the
Can you?
world's blaming you.
How do you deal with this?
The world's literally blaming you.
It's literally blaming you. Imagine that. Even, let's, if we even take a look at being a coach, I was a coach, right? And with me being a coach, one of the reasons why I decided to even step away and just go into my private practice of developing people was I cared so much that I felt like my blood pressure was going up. My eating habits was terrible. I didn't get a chance to exercise as much, and I found myself not being in the best conditioning of health.
Yeah.
And it was because of the drive to win. But when you're a coach, you're coaching a team, so you're kind of relying on a collective group of people to share one vision to win. So imagine every day I'm going through this anxiety and not even knowing that it was an anxiety or having an anxiety attack. I would never even know that. And I experienced this at a very young age, and this was me and my coaching. And now that I look back, that's what I dealt with. But wasn't able to label it.
Nope.
I wasn't able to have coping mechanisms.
You were dealing with it around the same time I was, which is nobody, there wasn't really a word for it.
No.
So when I grew up, I called it, I think we talked about this last time, I called it the feeling. I was like 13 years old and I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I wasn't depressed, like I wasn't sad, but I had this feeling inside that I couldn't explain and I didn't want to do anything and I didn't want to go anywhere. And I would literally tell my parents, I have the feeling. That's what all I could call it.
Mm.
And at 13, I don't know, so we're talking, in the like early 90s, I guess, late 80s, no, early 90s. And it was just wasn't a thing. And like my parents were like, well, at first they were like, okay, that you'll be okay, you're going through a little. And then when it was like, no, this isn't going away, it was like more or less, and I don't blame them. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, get your shit
Right,
together.
right, right,
Just
right.
stop. Like,
Right.
stop with the feeling.
That's something that people say all the time. Like, get over it.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen it. Like, most of all of my anxiety happened through sports. So imagine getting ready to perform before a game. You really want to win. It's a championship game, and you duck off and you throw up.
That's
That's anxiety.
that's serious anxiety.
Right, but but people can see you doing that and say, "Hey, get over it."
So it was bad because, your own parents who care about you the most, they got to a level where they were telling me, just get, my dad mostly, but my mom too, like, just get over it. Like, just stop. And I'd be like, I
I can't
can't.
stop.
And so I actually have some of my like hardest memories. I remember one where my mom's mom, my grandmother, who was like just a badass lady, she died. She lived to be 104, and she was just like, she was a proper woman, but she was just like, you didn't fuck with her, and she hadn't really fully seen it. I remember my parents were just having such a hard time coping with it. I don't remember why she was over at my house that day, and I just couldn't stop. And my parents' house, and she threw me in a cold shower. I was like 13 or 14. Lily was just like, get it together, and like threw me in a cold shower, and thinking somehow it would make me better.
Right.
And like, it doesn't help. Like,
Yeah, that
and
doesn't
because
help.
somehow they just thought, like, stop.
Right.
And it got to the place where like my parents were like, no, you're going to school. And I'd go to school and I'd just go sit outside of class and just, I couldn't handle it. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And it was just, I called this feeling. And eventually, I mean, I went to, you didn't go to a psychologist at the time. That
Right.
was, you were sick if you went to a psychologist.
Absolutely.
So I went to a few shrinks. Like, I think they took me to 3 or 4, and eventually they found someone who's like, he has serious anxiety. And they're like, basically, like, what the fuck's that?
So how did you handle it? What was like some of the steps like that you went through at that time that helped you kind of like manage it or overcome it?
So what's really interesting, we talked about this, I think, on the last show, is, my dad actually is what got me over it. The steps, I I'd say that was tough. But having anxiety in real life, like when you're not a kid, is much tougher. You don't realize, because like
Yeah.
that's real life, but you got parents and you don't have real responsibilities, right? So that was easier. It was terrible. I mean, I have like these things that I remember of just like, I thought the world was ending, right? But my dad set up a program of, I remember there was a book, and I'm sure it's still around. There was only like one book out at the time on it. And I remember the psychologist had my parents read it. It wasn't really for me as much. It was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That was the name of the book at the time.
That keyword, feel
The
the
fear
fear
and do it anyway.
and do it anyway.
And I
I got a
remember,
good story
I
about that.
still remember this book sitting there on the shelf. And eventually, my dad was just like, I think, as I said, he set up this program for me, which was like, every day we're going to add a little something more, because I wasn't going to school, I wasn't doing anything. And it led up to eventually me actually going out of the country for school for like a month at the end of this like program. And I kind of figured out that transitioned me back into real life. Now, the anxiety never went away. But what's interesting is that they put me on meds when I was a kid. I was like one of the very first SSRIs. Like today they have like Zoloft and stuff, but they didn't have any of
Right,
that back
right,
then.
right.
And they weaned me off of it. I figured out, I guess, how to cope. And I think they just thought, oh, he's just gonna forget he has anxiety. But like, I was never saw myself as normal. I mean, I used to tell my parents that. I remember even when I went to college, I'm like, it's easy for everybody else. It's not. I'm not normal. It's not easy for me. Like, just going away as a freshman, like moving, the anxiety that was like so extreme. And I remember trying to tell my parents that, like, and they're like, no, everybody feels. I think, no, they don't feel what I feel. Like,
So each person with that deals with anxiety may feel it at a different level. And I think that's something that, you know, when people in your family or people that are close to you, your mentors, people that you trust, when you're sharing things that are going on with you, I think it's really important that they listen.
it's now I'm so sensitive to it,
Right.
because of what I went through, and so I'm so sensitive to it with my own kids, and I'm sensitive to it with other people because I can see the symptoms. So like, I think we talked about this a little bit too before, but like, my hardest thing, my anxiety, comes when my brain's not busy, or when
Hmm.
my brain's too busy, I should say. Um, and my brain starts to, I think about something that could be wrong. And then it starts to spiral as to like the worst case. And then it goes down this deep hole, and I almost like dig inside and don't want to go anywhere. Like, I just want to like crawl up under a blanket and not leave.
So let me ask you this: how do you feel, and how would you handle with your kids? If your kid was dealing with anxiety, would you push them? Because I've seen situations and examples to where someone's afraid to get on a roller coaster, right? A roller coaster can really bring to the surface really quick that anxiety type feel, right? What would you do? Would you push your kid and say, hey, you can overcome this fear?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you be more compassionate? I'm kind of curious of what's your stance on
So
dealing
it's a
with that
very
anxiety.
it's an interesting question because there's two ways that I answer that. So I'm a very like as a dad, which is my most proud job,
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But I push my kids. I push them hard. My son, my 8-year-old, plays tennis 5 days a week.
Right.
Plays in a league. I coach it. He's very competitive on his own. Um, you know, uh, and I push him. He loves it, but I push him. But on the other hand, and if we were at I don't know, at the Magic Mountain or Disneyland, and he didn't want to do a roller coaster, I'd be like, we're doing the roller coaster.
Right.
I'd make him do it, but not because of the anxiety. It's that feel the fear and do it anyway type thing.
That's what I was trying to go
And
with.
it's a like what you're scared of in that case is the unknown. And once you ride the roller coaster and realize there's nothing to be scared of, you're kind of overcoming your fear. And that's the whole point of, you know. So what's interesting for me, even to this day, is anxiety, as you know, isn't, for all of us that are facing it, it isn't something you like control. You don't just all of a sudden say, go away and I feel better.
Right.
It's there and it's real. I used to say as a kid, when I try and explain it to my psychologist, I'd rather someone cut me with a knife than feel what I'm feeling. That's how I'd say to them. I'd say I'd rather it be like cut every day than feel what I'm feeling inside. And that's how bad this like feeling was. And I still get the same feeling. Like, I had it this week, I've had it last week, and it could be a trigger, and I could go a year without it. But it could be a small trigger, it could be a
Right.
big trigger, and I don't want to do anything.
Right.
My natural inclination is shut down, cancel everything, like, stay in bed, stay in my house, don't see anybody, don't talk to anybody. And the interesting thing is, before I understood it, so when I was young and, my 20s and running relativity, and people were calling me, and big people, and I wouldn't return their phone calls, they'd get offended. They'd think, oh, he thinks he's too good for me. Or I'd cancel a meeting.
But it
Oh,
wasn't that.
it was,
But see, nobody talks about this because the circle that we're running in and the circle that you grew up in and I've been in the last 20 years it's like 1% of people, right? So they really never have a private space for themselves.
no,
And when you don't have a private space for yourself, like I deal with athletes,
yeah.
when they don't have a private space for themselves, sometimes they don't return a phone call right away because they may be dealing with some things. And so it's not like you were neglecting it, but really that was one of your coping mechanisms to like,
I'd literally go into a shell. I'd put a wall around me. And, it's interesting because, I had one of my mentors was a guy named Jim Wyatt, who was the CEO and chairman of William Morris. And he sold it to Ari and was co-chairman for a minute,
right,
after he sold it. And before that was the co-CEO and chairman of ICM. And he was like one of my early mentors, and he was on my board. And he used to say, he'd send his assistant into my office. And he'd be like, I have this rule. I don't leave the office until I call every person back. And he's like, and I'm going to have my assistant train your assistant. So that, and Ronnie Meyer, who was another mentor, used to have the same rule. Be like, I'm going to sit in the office until I call every person back. I don't care who it is. So,
it can drive you nuts though.
well, what's interesting is he sent his assistant in, trained my assistant, say, okay, got the list of all these people to call back. And I look at the list and I feel the friggin' stomach start turning, and the like, that guy's gonna want to talk about this, and I don't have an answer for him, and that guy's gonna like, oh, that fucking movie's not ready, and I don't even know how to tell him we're not doing that, and he's going, and it would spiral me so bad. I'd be like, I can't make any of these phone calls.
At all.
Like, I'm not calling anybody back right now. I'm just going home. like,
You know how many people feel like that though?
like I just would lose it, and like sometimes I'd have, let's say I'd have a business partner even, and it would be, we'd be in a big deal or we'd be in the middle of something, and I didn't have answers for them, or at least answers they wanted to hear. And what's so funny is again, it's feel the fear and do it anyway. Like I know today, 20 years later, they don't care if I have the answer. They just want me to call them and say, here's what it is. I have it or I don't have it. And that's all they need is communication, right? That's what 99% of people need. It's just that communication. But I pissed off so many people and I upset so many people because they think I was just like, oh, he's just ignoring me.
You just been an asshole.
Yeah. And instead it was like, I was so anxious to call and tell. I knew I wasn't telling them what they wanted to hear. And I just didn't know how to call.
You know that's very normal though. It's when people hear this, it's gonna be a lot of people that identify with you. And not only identify with you, they're gonna put themselves in your seat. So one of the things that like I'm over here thinking about, some of the things that you've learned that can help them like cope or become better at dealing with that anxiety of like returning a phone call back. Because we've all been there. We've all sat there and I'm looking at my phone
Yeah, you're like,
and I'm like, okay, I got 300 text messages. I got 600 emails.
yeah, I literally,
I'm just gonna take a nap.
look, I hate it in the middle, but look at this. Unread text messages.
Yeah, you got 1,000. You got 1,000. And it's not, and so just so you guys know, it's not that Ryan don't want to get back with you. Ryan's still dealing with a little of his anxiety because he's worried about what you're gonna ask him.
So,
And
what happens is, it's interesting because I felt it this week in a certain circumstance, and it's and it's funny because the release is so easy,
yeah,
and yet it feels so difficult. So the first thing that I'll tell you that has helped me the single most is meditation. So I got very lucky that I had a guy named Tom Knowles who was one of the Maharishi's disciples. There was 11 of them. He lived like in with Maharishi, like total silence, like doing the whole thing.
yeah, his mind control is
And
great.
his stories are insane. So he apparently, there was I think 11 of them that were direct, and they all had their names that weren't, whatever he gave them, and they would have, Maharishi wouldn't talk, and they'd meditate and meditate. And he said when the Maharishi passed, before he passed, they were in the middle of a meditation, and he looked at each one of them. There's nothing wrong. He didn't look sick. He's like, his name was Tom, but Thom. I forgot what it was. Your peace is like no other. Whatever the other girl's name was. Your inner wisdom is like. And said to each one of them, which he never talked like. This is something. And then he said, and now it's time for me to go. And he just closed his eyes and died. And I got very lucky. Someone introduced me to him, and I started when I was in my 20s with meditation.
The
And
power of meditation.
yeah, transcendental meditation, and I then went into an advanced course and a more advanced course. It was
But for
private.
people, what about for people that are just like they're watching us now, talking about it? The simple form of meditation, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, something that they can just ease into.
Here's the interesting thing. At the time, I thought like, oh, it's because I learned all this advanced meditation. No, actually, because I went sometimes years without using it, and then back in like I do it 10 times a day now probably. But I kind of live in a meditation. What I realized is it wasn't the advanced stuff. So my son, my 8-year-old, has, he doesn't really know it, but he has anxiety and like somewhat diagnosed anxiety. And so I know how to deal with it, right? I actually taught him to meditate, and it works for him. And it's a very simple. Imagine an 8-year-old trying to teach them, like
Right.
you're going to teach your brain not to think about something. You can't tell them that.
No.
Like, so he has fears, and I literally taught him. I gave him a mantra, and what you realize of the point of a mantra, once you think you're getting some magical thing that he's bringing down from, no, all a mantra is a noise, a sound, or a word that doesn't have any meaning to you. So it doesn't bring up any feelings, emotions, or thoughts.
Okay.
So when you think, for people who have been given a mantra, you're like, oh shit, I thought it was some magic word. It's the sound itself had no affiliation to you, and that's why mantras were created the way they were, because they're not part of any language.
Right.
So when you say it, it doesn't make you think of something. Like if I say a word to you, if I say ball, you're thinking about something. If I say
Yeah. Right.
car, you're thinking about something. Even if I say like, I don't know, say the word shriek, you're thinking about something. But if I say the word, um, shrom, do you have anything if I say shrom or
I don't even know what shram is.
right? So
Right.
now say shrom 10 times in your head.
Mhm.
What are you thinking about?
I don't know. I don't know what shram is.
Because
That makes
that's
sense. Yeah.
meditation. You're not thinking about anything.
Right.
So what meditation is, and this is, I've done a lot of studying on it, is that um, it's taking your brain and putting it into a state that's similar to REM sleep, which is you only
That's
really
the.
get less than an hour of REM a
Yeah.
night, right? And so getting into REM is the most calming thing you can do for your brain.
It helps it brings down your stress, it brings down your anxiety. You actually can lose weight if you can get into like a deep sleep every night.
Yep.
It does a lot
And
of
and deep
it
and
helps.
REM are different too.
Right.
Like REM has a very specific brainwave pattern. So the largest study in history they did on meditation was actually done by, I forgot the insurance company. You'll love this story. So it was like I don't know at the time, Anthem or Blue Cross or Blue Shield, and they did a 30-year or 20-year study on meditation, and they took like, my numbers are going to be off because I read this in 20 years ago, but they took like 5,000 people on the core group and 5,000 on the study group, who exactly from the same, places and peers and cohorts, and said, don't change anything in your life. Taught these 5,000 how to meditate. 20 minutes a day, check the box that you've done it, meditate, TM, Transcendental Meditation. These 5,000, don't do anything different. Just do your own thing. It's the only thing. And we're going to follow you over, I think it was a 10-year period. And they found that the 5,000 people who were meditating, the amount of illness was like 95% removed, like less than the amount of illness in general,
Mm.
whether it was serious illnesses like, cancers and heart disease and, all the way to just like most basic. And it was so bad they shut the study down. And you know why they shut the study down? So one of the things that they were looking at was if do we teach people to meditate, as a health insurance company, it'll save us money. The 5,000 people group, something like 70% of them
live
canceled
longer.
their health insurance
Oh.
because they never went to the doctor.
Right.
They're
So
like, oh shit, we can't teach people to meditate.
Yeah.
They're not going to have health insurance anymore. And so it's that powerful. And all it is, so for my 8-year-old, I just gave him a word that I knew had no meaning to him, and I helped him say it, and then you help him say it quietly and more quietly, and then I just say, now close your eyes and just repeat it in your head and focus on the word. And here's the best explanation I ever heard. And I swear to God, this little simple thing gives as much to me as the most advanced 10, 15-year studies I did in meditation into the deepest, like, here's 27 sentences and words and focusing on the right chakras, which I have all of those things. This is just as good, which is you're saying the word and you're repeating in your head and you're closing your eyes. Be in a comfortable position. And you're going to have thoughts that come in, right? And they're going to consume you. It's just natural. And the way that you think about it is you're at an event and you're talking to someone you want to talk to. And your friends are inevitably going to walk up and say hi. And you're going to start getting distracted. And you're going to say hi nicely and start talking to them. And then you're going to realize, but I need to talk to this person. And you're going to say, it was nice to see you, and go back to talking to that person. And that's how you treat the thoughts that come in. And remember your mantra, because you start forgetting the mantra and you drift off because you're kind of asleep, but kind of not. And you just go back to that, like repeating that word. And I swear that simple thing is more powerful than anything I've ever done for anxiety. Now, that being said, it's funny because we had Rabbi Leader on the show, who's, a very, very, very well-respected rabbi.
Right.
He just came out of the blue, and he's like, I realized when I was like 50 that I had anxiety, and said it right in the podcast, got on SSRIs. He said, I've got on Zoloft. He said, changed my life. The rabbi actually said, I think they should put Zoloft in the water. He literally said that. And he's like, I didn't realize how much anxiety I was dealing with and what I was doing because these things he's done have been amazing. I mean, he
Right.
built the largest Jewish center in Los Angeles. It was, I think, $250 million he raised to build the Jewish center. It's, what can I say, a center? It's like 3 blocks in downtown LA. It's
Wow.
like, I mean, it's serious, and 3 schools, and the pressure too, because he's dealing with the most, I mean, literally, I'd say arguably some of the most powerful people in Los Angeles are in his congregation, and coming to him, right, for advice daily. So he's like, I put everything into work, and then one day I realized like I was hiding this underlying
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah. Nobody's exempt at all. And then like in the sports space, one of the terms that we've kind of created was permission to pause. And
I like that.
so, everyone has permission to pause in their life. And the reference point that I kind of used was any time in a game when it wasn't going your way, the coach will call timeout. And so timeouts in our life is very critical. It's a very critical thing to learn how to call timeout. So permission to pause gives each individual an opportunity to call their timeout. Now that timeout could be 30 seconds. It could be a 1 minute timeout. It could be a 3 minute timeout. It could be an 8 hour timeout. It depends on what that person needs. And so when we start to work with athletes, I start to teach them about permission to pause. So like, let's take an after the game type of interview by reporters. When you ask a question, you can ask them to repeat the question and you can take permission to pause. Because a lot of times when you're in a fighter mode, things can be
Come
said
out, yeah.
that you don't want to say, but even dealing with anxiety in the game. So imagine we're playing a full game, game 7. I get foul, 10 seconds on the clock. We're down 1. I get 3 shots, right?
Talk about pressure.
Th- th-
Talk about like,
like this is
I mean, but that's real life. That's like
that's
anxiety the whole world's watching, and
so now you
it's
got
all
the
coming
whole.
down to
It's
just
right.
you.
It's coming down right now to you. You're in front of 19,000 fans. Live is on live television, so
Yeah,
it's millions of people
yeah.
around the world watching, right? And you see the other coach calls a timeout.
Oh no! And he did that just to fuck with you.
There you go.
He was trying to trigger your anxiety.
So you see people, right, in the huddle. And this is something that I've studied. And I'm like, okay, what should happen in this situation? You got teammates walking by saying, hey, you're good.
Don't worry, you got
Don't
this.
worry, you got this.
Yeah,
And
calm down.
you got the athlete that's just sitting there. You can see him either go into a deep zone, or you can see that athlete that's taking those breaths of meditation. And he could be going into that realm of when he practiced.
Yep.
So
Picturing the ball going
picturing
in,
the ball go through.
closing the eyes.
So one of my good friends, Dwayne, we had this conversation. Game 6, I think, against the Mavericks championship.
Oh yeah, I remember that game.
The night before, he had his cousin in his ear saying everything you can think of. Just, "Wah," and he was shooting free throws. Pow, pow, pow. He gets fouled. Game is on the line. He went into this rim. He blocked out everything in the arena.
Yeah, everything goes quiet.
He only can hear his cousin.
Oh,
So he made the 2 free throws, but he was able to go into what everybody calls the zone.
yeah, the zone. Because he entered the zone.
So going into the zone helps with anxiety for athletes,
It helps with anxiety for everyone.
for everyone.
But that's the zone is not just athlete. See, the court is such a good
That was a good analogy.
of life,
Right.
right? Because everybody has their own court,
Everybody has their own court.
and that's where we live in the court
You
of
got to
life.
say that again. Everybody
has their own
court.
Literally, court is the best representation of life, and we're all
It's like
somewhere on the court.
in that
We're
situation,
either a coach, or we're a
a
point guard,
player,
or we're a center, or we're, you know, a team owner, or, you know,
someone.
you're someone there in that, on
That's
that field. We're all there.
that's good.
And, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I'd say when you look at the game of life and the game of basketball, you know, in the game of basketball, you have extremes, right? People tend to make a lot more than the average person, but they're also judged a lot more than the average person.
They have to.
But the pressure
They have to fail
to fail
in front of
the world,
every time they touch the floor.
right? Because as we talked about last time, they're gonna fail if they're the best 70% of the time. If they're the best,
If they're the best,
right? So if you think about that, and when they fail, and you know, there's always the guy on the court who can't even dribble a ball, but going, "Oh, you suck," and you're like, "Yeah, you come out here and fucking do it, right?"
And do it
But,
right now.
right? But everybody is a troll. I hate to say it, but everybody, I didn't say everybody.
No, I mean, no, it's a lot of trolls and what we call Monday
morning
coaches.
quarterbacks or
so
coaches.
they want to coach after the game, so everyone can see it after the game.
Of course. And that's life, by the way. Business, it's so funny because I see a lot of businesses that didn't make it, that are great businesses, or like gone through a chapter 11 and then come out and everybody's like, "Oh, look, see, I knew that business could make it. Now it's super successful." And it's like, no, it was so easy to look at the business someone else built and see this part didn't work and stick another guy in there and just be like, "I'm just going to cut out the part that didn't work because I got to reset." If you kept the guy in there who started it and told him to cut it out, the same thing would have happened, right? And so you could take that same, so the high and low of basketball, you know, I'd say puts a more extreme on the excitement and puts a more extreme on the anxiety. So you have to learn to control that anxiety more, but you also have the extreme and that feeling of coming out and having the crowd cheering you on, right?
Right.
So I kind of feel like that's, for me, is the same in life. When I'm sitting at home and for some reason, some anxiety in life hits me and I don't want to leave the house. And I'm just like, oh, I want to leave the house. I don't want to return the phone call. I don't want to see the person, right? The moment that I actually just get one foot in front of the other, go to where I don't want to go, feel the fear and do it anyway, take that step. I'm like 90% of my head, I'm not going to do it, but I'm just like taking step by step.
I love it. You know what we call that, so that way people, the viewers, can get this, is that we call it Wi-Fi. Be where your feet are. And so when you are talking about, you're giving this illustration of like, you're a CEO, and when people see you, they may be like, wow, but you're also a human being. And so the title doesn't make you who you are. The human being does.
Yep.
And just being human for all of us is very normal. And so when you're Wi-Fi, when you're where your feet are,
where your feet are, it's because that's how I live life. Is I think like, no, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to take one foot and go forward. No, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to take the second foot. And then next thing, no, I'm not going to do it, but my foot's on the gas in the car taking me there. And then by the time I walk in the meeting, all of a sudden it's like I feel better. It's my court.
Yep.
And now I'm running the meeting.
You're running.
And now the meeting's going great. And now I've forgotten I even had a problem with it. And I'm loving the meeting because I'm like, this is what I'm good at. I'm really good at doing whatever it is. I'm on set shooting, or I'm, you know, closing a deal, or I'm, you know, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I forgot I had anxiety, and I feel great because I'm really good at what I do.
You made me start thinking about, and this is a whole nother topic, the anxiety that people feel about social media.
Oh, so I don't understand it because I think you and I grew up in a different world.
But I can see it.
I see it every day because of these movies we're making with these, you know, with these kids, and I'm making, you know, these movies with these influencers. I mean, so first of all, social media for all these kids' lives, so they have two lives.
They have two lives.
They have to do everything right in their real life, and then they have to do everything right in their social media life. And when I hear all these, like, I got to post it right, and you got to not do this, and you can't follow the wrong person, and you have to disfollow this person and unfollow that. I like just figured out today you could unfollow someone. Like, I can't even imagine carrying. Like someone called me and they're like, "Oh, you have to unfollow this person because blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "Why? They're not gonna see that I unfollow." I'm like, "How do you even know I follow
Well,
them?"
yeah, how do you even know?
And
That's
then
my
like,
question.
"Yeah, you can look apparently, and I'm like, okay, like it really matters. Like, oh no, it matters. And I realized that like that's a life that in your 20s, maybe in your 30s, but in your 20s, they literally have to live by like who they follow, who they don't follow. If something happened that was wrong and you're associated, you're supposed to unfollow them or follow them or comment right or don't comment right or like and and then the whole trolling game
Yeah.
has become, you know, it's it's the whole we talked about it, the man in the arena. Like it like Churchill like predicted this before social media when he talked about he starts out with it's not the critic who counts.
It's not. It's
You
the
know,
person with the dirt marred
yeah,
on his face. I
marred with
know.
dust and
With
sweat
dust
and
and
blood
sweat
and
and blood
tears.
tears.
And it's like I love how he says it though because it's so
It
applicable
is.
to that. And that's what I say to all these people with social media who like judge. It's like forget the critic because that person, as he says, not exact words, you know, is a cold, timid soul who's never going to know the
He's never,
joy of
yes.
victory or the sadness of
So
defeat,
defeat.
right?
Yes.
And as he says, I'd rather be
I should know
marred
it.
in the dust and the sweat and tears and that try and erred and failed and short time and time again and known the sweetness of victory and the
The defeat,
hardness of
yeah.
defeat of or hardness of defeat, even if I've only defeated, than to be the cold and timid soul who
That's on
neither
the
nor
outside.
defeat
No
nor victory.
victory.
And
I
that
used to
is a
know that by
troll.
heart. I used to know it by heart.
But that's a troll.
That is a troll. And but when I'm looking at the kids, and this is one of my biggest concerns, and I'm glad that we are able to have our podcast failure because, it's not pretty, right? It's not something that everyone wants to talk about when social media is about glitz, glamour. It's not about posting your failure.
Nope.
And it's not about talking about shit that people really act like they don't deal with. So
Right.
like
No, they don't
anxiety is
want to talk
something
about it.
nobody really want to talk about because it's real, but it's like, why would we talk about it? But I only can imagine some of the DMs that we're going to get from some of the young people that are on social media that their full-time job is social media. I can
Oh,
imagine a young girl, right, that her whole social media is about her image, her body image, right? And she is having to live by two different types of people and post this away, but then want to be as normal as possible. I can imagine the anxiety that she feels when she gets to a point in her life to where she's ready to move into a business side. You can feel the anxiety every day of what do I eat? Do I work out? What do I look like? I
how
think
about
about my
how about
daughter.
how
I'm
about
like,
how about on top of that, then goes into and then what do I tell people I eat? And what do I tell people I work at? It's like they don't just have to worry about what they do, they have to worry about what they tell people they do. Then they have to worry about, oh, but on top of that, when I tell people what I do, am I saying it right or am I gonna piss off someone I work with? Like so there's this girl Charlie D'Amelio who's like the most followed female TikTok. She was like the first to break 100 million TikTok followers, and we
okay,
worked a lot with her when we were building our business, and I got to know her family well, and they're just amazing people. Heidi and Mark, her mom and dad. I think she was 17. She got 100 million followers, and she was a dancer and just like a very real person. And she got very emotional. Like trolls would sometimes like shit on her.
yeah, because they drop in comments. Anybody can drop a comment.
And I remember a few times in her 17-year-old like breaking down on social media crying and just being like, I can't take what you guys are saying about me.
Yeah, this is very interesting because the counselor in me always think about that. Like the comments, people could say anything, trolling. Like from the outside, you can really ridicule and really like tear down someone's character without ever knowing them. And you can do it from any remote place in the world. So the anxiety that these young people are feeling, we have to create some type of coping mechanisms and skill sets for these young people to handle the failure of social media because it's not going anywhere because it's an amazing tool.
Yeah.
But when every time you share maybe your success, there's 10 people in your comments that you don't know that is there to say you're terrible or
10.
somebody gave it to you.
Like, dude, as a person's name I don't say, but came up with a fictional story on my life. I grew up as a super rich kid. I never made my own money. It was given to me by my dad. Like, all fake.
Oh, somebody just made up the story.
Made up a story. And a very famous social media person who's just famous for being a troll. But all that person's followers believed him. So in my comments, do you know how many times I get like, "Oh, you're just a kid," like easy for the kid of a rich dad to say, and like I'm thinking like, rich dad, like I got yelled at for buying $100 pair of jeans once. Like I drove a minivan. Like what are you talking about, rich dad? Like we lived in a,
Right.
it was I lived in Brownwell, but we lived in a 2,200 square foot house for most of my life until we were, I mean, my dad was very smart and very educated, and eventually did become successful.
Right.
But I was already successful on my own when he was like, he was a doctor and whatever, and he did great, but not
like that.
not rich kid great. Like he never turned around and said, here's $1 million.
But you're an adult, so you probably look at the comments a little different. Like I look at the comments. I actually look at comments on a social media platform for growth.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's different because I want to know the negatives and I want to fail.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with it because I know it's a part of the process. But when you're 13 years old,
Oh, I didn't even
and
know how they take
you're
it.
just scrolling, and all of a sudden you do what's natural. You start comparing yourself.
Yep.
You start comparing where you should be versus where you really are.
Lamborghini mansion.
Yep.
Boat.
The
Nightclub.
the
private planes.
yeah.
Like so.
And that's not even really what it is. And
It's all made. They go shoot. I don't want to give away a part of our movie, but like in our new movie Skill House coming up, we pull into that world a bit, and even though it's a horror movie and we mock it a bit, like where the top influencers in the world are shooting on a private plane, and then all of a sudden you pull out and you realize it's a set they're shooting on, and they're posting on a private plane. They're like thanking their followers, oh, that's why I'm flying around on private planes, and then you like cut and you realize in the movie, like we make fun they're walking off of a set where they're shooting on the private plane just so their audience thinks they're on a private plane. And this is a real location where influencers actually go shoot pretending to be on a private plane.
So for you young people that are out there, from Ryan and I, we want you to be highly encouraged just to put one foot in front of the other.
That's it.
Like Ryan said earlier, with him being a CEO and owning different companies, he still wake up to put one foot in front of the other. So for you guys that are out there that making your living or want to do things, don't look to the right, don't look to the left. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other and learn how to get a skill set that allows you to cope and live with people that are trolling you, people that don't want to see you be successful. And a lot of times these people are not even in your circle anyway. So don't let that anxiety, because you could feel the anxiety of like opening up your app and they're opening these young people that this is their society, bro.
I know.
This is where they live at. They live on each platform in some different way, form, to where they're gonna see it. And so my thing is what skill sets are needed to overcome the anxiety that you can feel through comparing yourself to what is reality versus fiction, and to be able to enjoy social media and leverage the platform. Like it's like all of these little things.
So I think from it being in social media somewhat, like one of our businesses, right? I've realized the one thing you have to realize is social media isn't real.
There you go.
So it has the word media in it for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You're like just TVs and movies, movie stars, that's not their real life. TV stars, that's not their real life. It's made up. Even I did 39 reality series. Out of all 39, there wasn't one that wasn't at least loosely scripted, right? Nothing's actually reality. The reality is social media is social media. Media, i.e., made for entertainment.
I love that.
And what people
I
have to
love that.
understand, and I don't
Can you
think
say
they
that one
do,
more time so that that way that's really good because you
it's
just taught me something.
it's when you think about the word, so being a media person, right?
Right.
So media to me means you're making something for entertainment, a movie, a television show. But social media, all it means is it's media, things made for entertainment value
Mm-hmm.
that are being shared socially versus watching it, through another
Mm.
platform. That's it.
That's it.
So somehow people decided this is real life. And I could tell you, seen firsthand with, I think, we did the Sway House, we did the Hype House, we did, the Compound, we did the Triller House, we did, I had all of the top 100, TikTok influencers or whatever, 95 of them grew up in our houses that we
Wow.
had, and, were under contract with us. I can tell you, like, they know it's not real. Like, they know that this is their job, is to entertain, and they're really good at it. And whatever they're entertaining is, the entertainment could be like, it looks like just having fun. And no, even like Mr. Beast, who's obviously so
Yeah,
successful
he's
in what he
very
does.
successful.
But think about it. How much does he spend each
Oh,
episode?
he's gonna
It's
spend.
like $5
Yeah,
million
he's
an
gonna spend
episode or
some money.
something.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just going out and talking, and it's not him just saying, "Hey, world." No, he's literally putting millions, more than people put into a TV show, into doing a post, right? And when you put it in that context and you think about it, right? And then he launches a chocolate bar off of it and a burger off of it. And, it's like, this is all commerce. And what happens is our kids today look at that and scroll and go like, I must be doing something wrong because, and then the thing about the comments I realize is also, so it's like a TV critic, right? Like, when I was a kid, and I don't know about you, but when critics liked movies, I didn't want to see it because it meant I was going to hate it. Like, if a
Yeah, made
critic
it.
was writing a good, like a good review on a movie, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be one of those. At least when I was a kid, that's gonna be one of those like boring Academy movies that I'm not gonna want to watch, like some drama, right? The moment you saw like so and so gives it 8 stars and Siskel and Ebert say they love it, right? And the moment they're like, it was trash, I'm like, oh, I'm sure I'm gonna love that movie, right? And I don't see it as much different than the trolls, right? Or even comments. First of all, who has time to go look at someone else's social media when they don't know you,
Right.
right? So if it's your friend and they're commenting, good or bad, then it's like, okay, pay attention to that. Your friend
Right.
just said something in front of the world to you,
To you.
okay? So that means something. If it's your friend or
Right.
someone you know,
Right.
and there's a reason why. But if it's a random face, and especially what I've noticed with most of the negative comments is you post, it's not even a real account. It's like some dummy account they've used with like, or it's private, and you're like, okay, yeah, really, you're gonna post a comment about someone you don't know from a private account, right? So who has time to sit there and type up like, oh, you're a horrible person, you suck, and everything you say sucks, or whatever it is. Like, who has time to actually, not a real person, number one,
No.
and not someone who's actually someone you should care about.
Or someone that is actually in the game, skin in the game.
They don't, you know what? If they're doing well, or they're succeeding, and success doesn't have to be money, right?
Right.
If they're out there living their best life, right? As we said in my last company, you do you. If they're doing you
Right.
themselves, right, and they're productive in their life, in whatever it is, it could be in basketball, it could be in entrepreneur, it could be as simple as like, I'm a trash man, but I'm the best, hardest working trash man there is. They're not sitting at home writing negative comments about people.
Absolutely.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And so when you put it in that context and you're like, let me just start with like, if you walk down the street and I don't know, a homeless person who's, hasn't had food and is intoxicated starts yelling names at you, are you going to like start questioning yourself?
No.
You kind of feel bad for the person. You're gonna be like, oh, what's wrong? Did they have a mental illness? Are they just out of money? What put them on the street?
Mm-hmm.
What put them to where they need to attack me, right?
Right.
What's different from that? And the person who has the time to go onto your feed, who doesn't know you, it's not part of a game. It's not like, oh, well, this guy and this guy are like, one of these young kids are like, going at it. It fuels that for them is a whole like, I'm going to threaten this guy and he's going to threaten me and our followers we're going to have a beef and they're going to talk about it. That's just part of social media,
Right.
right? Like media. That's their job. But when it's someone that's just randomly popping in your feed and shitting on you, why is that any different than the person who you're walking by on the street that you don't know? Who's like, "Ah, you're fucking asshole." You're like,
Yeah.
you feel bad for that guy.
Right. You feel bad for them, and you really don't acknowledge like that.
No.
So so basically what you're saying is for the young people when they are being trolled on social media, if it's not someone that they're connected to, like you shouldn't even give it any energy at all because literally that person had to take time to come to their page to leave a nasty comment. If it was a comment of like improvement
Yeah.
or what we call like in sports where coaches on you and
Constructive
it's
criticism.
constructive, it's like, hey, but even in that, most people that really give constructive criticism, they can direct message you or they have some type of access
Yeah.
to you that allows you to be able to um, accept the constructive criticism. But you're not going to accept constructive criticism from people that you don't know anyway,
Right.
because they don't know
If a
everything
random
about you.
person walked up and said to you, "Here's what you should change in your life," you're gonna be like, "You don't know about my life. You know 1% of it, right?
Right.
Because you're not here with me,
On a day-to-day
right?
basis.
But if it's someone who's around you, like if you said to me, "Hey, Ryan, I want to tell you something. Like I think this and this and this could be better," I'm gonna listen because I'm gonna be
Because
like,
we're right here. It's
and I'm gonna
different.
be like, he's trying to help me.
You know, this is something that we had a deep conversation about. There's three things that help me with this, right? And I think this is probably why I don't have anxiety dealing with this is there's associates, there's constituents, and then there's confidants. So dealing with social media, you have to identify who's your associates. Associates are people that we can associate with. So like even in social media, you can see that, hey, like I like your post, you like my post. We really don't know each other, but we know each other from a social media standpoint. I could work with your brand, you could
Yeah.
work with my brand, but the relationship is just a sociable, right? But when you have a constituent, it's somebody that you're social media friends with, and then we may go out to dinner in LA. We may see each other. You don't come to my house, I don't go to
No.
yours. I don't tell you my secrets,
Right.
but like we share business ideas,
Yep.
and then you have a confidant.
Yeah.
Confidant is someone that when the cameras are not on, when you're
Your
not on
friend.
social media. Matter of fact, your confident people you might not ever talk to on social media because it's so small of a group.
Yeah.
I think those three things of helping young people identify in their life could really help them dealing with anxiety
I
when it
think
comes to social media.
I think it's really good because you put it into like the different words than I've used
Yeah.
before, but it's you have a group of small friends, and the
Yep.
older you get, you realize the less friends you actually have than you thought you have, right? Because you see who shows up, who's there in the hard times. You literally you have such a small group of friends that you when you're younger you think, oh, I have all these friends because you're going out a lot. No, let's go out, let's go out. No, those are I think what you'd call your
Associates.
your associate
Associates.
because
Yeah.
you're going out but you're not really sitting there telling them like your dark secrets or your like what's like oh I'm in pain today or they're not they're kind of around. You
Yes.
think they're your friends, and at a young age you call them your friends. You know how many people I'm like this is like my closest friend,
Yeah.
you know, and you realize who's around for the good times, who's around for the bad times, you know, and it's interesting because I hear it flips all the time. Sometimes I hear people say you could tell your true friends are during the highest success, or you could tell your true friends are during your lowest of lows. And I think both are true because your truest friends and your highest success are the ones who are going to be like, listen, just because you're super successful
Right.
doesn't mean you aren't fucking up.
Right. I mean that's
And the
very
person
true.
who actually can look at you and say, I don't care that everybody else is kissing your ass and telling you how great you are. Because when you're successful, that's what everybody does, right?
Yes.
Like it's the person who could say, you're being an asshole, you know?
And what
And
like I'm not gonna deal with that.
yeah. And then also, it's when you're at your lowest low and they have nothing to gain from you. And they show up just to sit with you and say, like, you know what? I'm just here. We don't have to do anything. Just
Yeah.
let's just sit and chill.
That's a confidant. The constituents are the trickiest So like, remember you were saying earlier on social media where they were talking about unfollowing and following. You're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
A constituent is someone that you could be following. You could do business together. Maybe you share a group of people in a network together, and then that person crosses you,
Yeah.
and you were like, kind of on the border. Like, are they my confidant? Are they a constituent? But constituents are in the middle,
Yeah.
so you have to identify
You
the
have to put them
constituent.
into a
You have to
category.
make sure, because this keeps you from being hurt. It keeps you from feeling very anxious about who you can trust and who you can't trust.
Well, so I realized a few things, right? One thing that I realized it's funny about the anxiety is like half my anxiety, like I said, is one foot in front of the other. You know,
Hmm.
get out of bed, get in the shower, get your clothes on, put your foot forward, put your next foot forward, right? But once you go out wherever it is you're supposed to be going that you're anxious about, like you're generally, if you open the door, like you said, figure out what you want to do, right?
Hmm.
Walk onto the court, and whether it's the basketball court of the court or the court of life,
The core of life.
just walk out on the court, even if you're walking out alone with a ball. And again, totally analogy for life. But if you walk out on the court with the ball and you just start shooting, you don't have to be good.
Right.
Something's going to happen. Something is going to happen. You're going to see someone, you're going to meet someone, you're going to have someone say, hey, let me help you with your shot. Maybe your shot's great, and they're going to say, hey, that's a great shot, you know. Or maybe they're just going to say, yeah, I'm out here shooting too. You want to go grab a bite? And you
Yeah.
meet someone
It could be
interesting.
anything. Yeah.
And you know, in the court of life, that's what I've learned, which is just getting up, you know, going to that place that I didn't want to go because I'm got anxiety about it or whatever. 7 out of 10 times, I'm like, look what just happened there. You know, I met a person who I needed to meet that, again, it might not be a confidant, it might not be, you know, a constituent, but it's transactional maybe, but it's someone I needed to meet to get something done that gets to the next level. And you know what? I feel great about it. And it's okay because there's 90% of life is transactional, right? Like I think I have 7 friends that I could say are like my true confidants, right? And every year, you know, you realize like maybe I have 6, you know, I don't know, because you know, but it's okay that you have a lot of transactional people in your life if you recognize, both sides recognize it's transactional, right? I'm doing business with them. They don't have to be my best friend.
That's your that's your constituents.
Right.
Yes,
And,
that's good.
And what happens is you say, you know, it used to be like, oh, well, if you're spending a lot of time with someone in business, I used to feel like they have to be my best friend.
Right.
Oh, this is my dear friend because I'm spending every day with them in business. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. It's like, look, it can be. Sometimes it is. But other times it's like, look, we do good business together. And, you know, we're very good in business. We're business associates. And if you start breaking into those boxes, right, and you just put your life in those perspectives, and you also, when I say put it in boxes, create boundaries. That was the other thing that helps me is like, I like to be home for dinner. So I realized I had, in my line of business, dinners were a big deal. Like in the movie business, everybody wants to go have dinner. They want to go to Nobu, you know, Malibu or Mastro's or whatever. And, you know, it's a big thing is go have dinner. I used to have 3 dinners a night.
Yeah.
You know, because whether it was another studio head or it was an actor or it was a director. And when I went, do I have to go to dinner? In my head, I don't actually like going to dinner. I like to be home for dinner and just, I'm a homebody. I stopped going to, I mean, it's not that I won't, but I stopped going to business dinners.
The business dinners that's.
I was like, I'm going to go to dinner if I actually want to spend time with that person as a person, not because I feel like I have to go to a business dinner with them. Because I can get to know them in business by sitting in a meeting with them and even having a lunch. Like if they want to know a little more about me or I want a little more about them in business because we're doing business, we can go have lunch. But like dinners for my family or my friends. And when I drew that boundary, I was like, didn't change anything in business for me.
So setting boundaries is very critical to helping with anxiety.
It's so important because if you can structure your life, you know, like you said, so you have.
No, I think this is good because
you have 3 types of people.
Yeah.
It's okay to have transactional people. I think a lot of people think, well, that's bad. It's like, well, why is it bad to have transactional people in your life?
You got transactional people and you can associate with them. You can do business, it's trustworthy business. But what happens is your level of trust for someone like that and a confidant is so different that your expectations change and you don't hold them accountable for being a confidant. So now you can have a long-term business relationship with them because a confidant, you like, I trusted you and you put a lot into it, and so that's where I feel like disconnects come in at. But when if we're just transactional, and we address it in maybe a contract, maybe we address it in terms,
Yep.
and we've become very good at it. So when we're done, it's like, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. I got to go dinner with my kids. It's like, yeah, there's no expectation. I think those are some of the best business relationships because it takes the anxiety off of having to go sit through, X amount of dinners a night and things like that.
And it's important. And people think, so it's funny because um, I do business now with a lot of people, and I less and less too. But part of it is like I do business with who I want to do business with, but some people might not have that luxury yet.
Right.
So as long as you look at it as a transaction and both sides look at it as a transaction, um, it's okay. Like you don't have to feel bad about it. Like you don't have to. Like I don't like doing business with people I don't like, and I don't encourage people doing that unless they have to. But you don't have to make them your best friend. Like the people that hurt me the most in my life were people who I did business with that I also made my best friends and
Right.
like took in my life as if they were my brothers and treated them and felt like they were my brothers. And I didn't realize for them was totally transactional.
Right.
For me, I gave them everything I had.
Dude, that's how
You know,
Drake has the best verse out. I don't know which song it is. I know the verse though. And he starts the song off like this. He said, I wish I knew what people wanted from me
he's
in
so
the
good.
first 5 minutes of meeting them. He was saying in the next verse, he was saying this will help him out. Because if he knew what you wanted from him,
He'd know where to put you in
he
what
know
box.
exactly where. He said it in the first verse of the song, and I don't know if I can't. I gotta look
I
up
don't
the
know the
song.
song, but that's a great,
I'm gonna
like,
play you the
yeah,
song.
no, that's a great, like,
I'm gonna actually find it while we were sitting here. But and I knew it because when he said it, it it just jumped because I have so many people that reach out to me in so many forms, whether it's through an app, whether it's through email, whether it's indirectly through an agency.
yeah,
And the first thing I always want to do is I want to be like, I wonder what they want. Because if they actually told me what they want, I want to help them.
right.
But
You,
if I'm on the phone with you for 40
and they
minutes, I
don't
get
tell you,
anxiety
yeah,
because I was like,
you're
I
like, when's it
just
gonna come out?
I'm like, and when he said it, it was just like, to me, it was so like me. And I was like, yo, he was so smart with it. He was so genius because it made sense. I'm going to find it in 2 seconds. And I
It's
know what it is.
what is it?
7 a.m. on the bridal path. It's on the Certified Lover Boy.
I
I know
know
we
it.
can't
I
play
know
it
it.
because
We
we
can't
don't
play
want to
it.
play.
No,
Well, we don't want to play it because we don't want to pay Drake.
sorry, we love you, Drake,
Sorry,
but
Drake.
we can't afford you.
We can't afford you. But I'm gonna play it after the show.
Yeah, for
And
sure. Because I know the song.
it's so good.
You
And he
know,
says it in the first beginning.
so it's
It's
you know
good.
what it was funny because I remember when so for me, like I had a couple early on when I was like in my 20s where let's call it whether it was a famous producer or a famous actor or whatever, and we'd be doing business and we became what I thought was incredibly good friends. My biggest one was two business people who I literally let live in my house, give them my cars, like eh, gave them my life. When I met them, they had nothing. But when we were done, they were making 30 million a year. And spent the last 2 years as they were signing the ketubah at my wedding, like planning out how to steal my company. That was what put the studio I had where I had to put it into a Chapter 11 because they were planning it as a hostile takeover. While they were signing the ketubah, which is I should have asked my brother and I
Right.
didn't, as them.
Oh,
And
that's dirty.
and like it was bad. But I've seen it. I've gone through it. I've gone through it with some of the most famous actors where I was like, that was my like closest friend, and like the smallest thing ended up ending the relationship. Like they got pissed that I didn't cast them in a movie, and I'm like, but bro, like it's not me. There's 50 people in it, and like I thought it was your best friend. Like yeah, but and that could end a relationship.
I
But
can't in a
but I
relationship quickly.
but that's not, they weren't my best friend then, right?
Right.
But the interesting thing is, I just watched it happen to someone who is a dear friend of mine, who I do business with, and he orchestrated a deal we were involved in. I'm not gonna say who or what or where, but like some pretty famous people, and they brought him into his circle, and I watched it going down. I predicted it because I saw it where he'd never been in the fame, he'd never like been treated in like he wasn't in like the, this was more in the music world than in the movie world, and he was all of a sudden around like the biggest names and 24/7, and he got lured in, and these were his best friends. He would tell them like he was with them all the time, and I mean I watched it going down. It was very transactional for them, and it was very lucrative for them. And the moment that it wasn't as lucrative for them, but they were able to make it more lucrative by fucking him over, they did. And they didn't have to, but because he kind of trusted them and he thought they were his best friends, he might not have done the contract perfectly. He would, kind of let it be a little easier. They weren't going to fuck him.
Right.
And I was like, in my head, I'm like, just waiting. I was just waiting for it to come because I've seen it. And you can't tell someone, dude, I know you want to believe these guys are your best friends, but they're not. They're here
Right.
because you wrote them a big check and they think there's more. And when there's not more, if there's a better way for them to make money by screwing you over, they will. And it happened. And I watched it, and he was heartbroken.
Right.
And he's my age. Like, he's in his 40s, but he just had never been in that before. And all of a sudden, it was so exciting. And, you can't tell that person.
No, it's tough.
No.
That's
And
tough.
I mean, I saw that. That was,
Yeah, you can see it.
it was so bad. I actually had anxiety over it because I knew it was coming. And I had anxiety for him,
That's the experience though, like I'm sitting here thinking about the last time that I dealt with anxiety, and you're gonna laugh, but I'm claustrophobic.
Really.
Like didn't even know it, right? The first experience that I ever experienced was when I was gonna get my MRI
I was
done
going to
on
say
my knee.
MRI. Yeah.
And they went to put me, I'm sitting there, and the thing was great, and I stopped them.
Yeah, you pressed
Hey,
the button. Get me out. Get
let
me
me out.
out.
Let me out right now. I want out. I don't know why I feel like this.
Yeah.
You got to put me to sleep.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, they're like
literally,
giving you like Valium.
I
Like,
was like, yo, like literally, you got to put me to sleep because I don't know what I'm feeling right now.
you're feeling trapped. So
You felt very trapped.
felt like you're buried underground.
I'm a free spirit,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, I felt this. I was about to get on this ride, and they put the thing over me
Oh,
to
the
go.
harness. Yeah.
Yes, and I was in Dubai,
Oh, I know.
and
Yeah.
we were at this called Ferrari World, and this is really recent,
Yeah.
right? I was
Yeah.
at
You were
Ferrari
just in
World. I was
Dubai.
just
Like,
there,
yeah.
and the thing went boom, and I was like, I looked,
Get me the fuck out of here.
and I was everything in my brain, but I quieted it. I really got just real
You
still
meditated.
for a second, and I tried to control my breath, and all of a sudden it was like, boom, it was gone, and we were about to take off, and it was over, but I felt something.
That's anxiety.
That's
But so
anxiety.
imagine if you have that for 15 hours in a row, and it won't go away.
I can't imagine that.
So that's what people who have like severe anxiety.
It's really extreme.
How about days at a time?
Yeah.
And so what I learned was the surest way to keep it is to not change anything.
Okay.
So
So predictability.
well, it's
That-
more that, okay, there's an old saying which is the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over
again.
expecting a different outcome.
hmm
So if I'm sitting there, and by the way, I'm guilty of it. I do it still to this day. I just get out of it quicker, right? If I'm sitting on my couch and I'm feeling extreme anxiety, and it's been 3 hours, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm just gonna like turn on music or close my eyes or try and zone out in a TV show or read a book, and that's gonna get rid of my anxiety. And I'm still sitting there and I'm feeling all the anxiety and all the thoughts are going through my head that are making me feel anxiety. And I'm not changing anything because I'm still sitting on my couch, right? It's not gonna change. Sitting on my couch clearly isn't helping me.
It's not gonna
Okay?
help you.
So what do? what am I anxious about? And there's a dinner I'm supposed to go to, but I'm going to cancel the dinner because I'm feeling anxious. No, don't cancel the dinner. Go to the dinner. And as much as I'm dreading going to the dinner, right? Meaning not the business dinner per
Right,
se, but
right.
a friend's dinner. Right? This could
It could
literally
be
be like
anything.
a good friend I'm supposed to have dinner with. I'm going to cancel because I'm feeling too anxious. Go to the dinner. And I
And
tell you what, 99% of the time I go to the dinner, anxiety's gone.
so when you think about that, because I'm thinking about the strategies, we talked about meditation,
Yep.
we talked about creating boundaries.
Working out,
That's
just
that was
getting
my next one.
any kind of workout. Like,
You know what helps me?
I,
Yoga.
yoga
Every
is the best.
every morning yoga, and I do hot yoga. And the first, like this is my third year consistently going to yoga, right? When I forced myself to go to yoga, but the initial feeling being in an enclosed room, remember I feel like
Yeah,
I'm
you're claustrophobic,
claustrophobic, right?
right?
I wanted to leave. And I fought with myself. Like this was a you versus you type of battle.
Yeah.
And I think I've really strengthened myself because from today, looking back 3 years ago, it took everything out of me every time I went into yoga because it was a little hotter. I felt a little bit more uncomfortable. But the more I did it, the better I got. And that goes to the theory of putting one foot in front of the other. And now today, I consider myself a yogi. But what yoga really does for me is it puts me right back in that really small box.
Centers you.
It centers me with heat. It makes me have to face things that I normally wouldn't do. So putting my own self in uncomfortable situations
Yeah.
really helped me with the anxiety of setting my day up.
So what you're doing is what it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of what you do as a job,
Yeah.
you don't realize how similar it is to helping people with anxiety because think about this, right? So what is someone doing who's pushing beyond the boundaries like of they're already doing something great and now they're going to try and push to a new boundary. They're putting themselves in an uncomfortable position.
You,
And
yeah,
and
you,
and you have to get more uncomfortable.
you do.
And what you're talking about is like what you do for life.
That's
You
what
do
I'm doing it every
right.
day.
And so you're actually putting people in an anxious position and teaching them how to get through it. So anxiety, if you think about it, is like I'm got this feeling inside. I can't do this. I'm gonna like fall apart if I do this thing, right? And to you, to me, or to you, not to me,
Now,
it
this
seems
is
like an
good.
ordinary thing.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? You're just going to your friend's house for dinner. It's like, I know, but I don't know why. I just don't want to leave. I don't want. You don't know why. But what you're talking about is like, I went into. I don't have anxiety right now, but I went into hot yoga and I put myself in
I put
anxiety
myself
and
in that
pushed myself through it.
because me being claustrophobic is being in a hot box
Right.
and knowing that I can leave, but I can't leave.
But that's so exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is so imagine you're making a decision to do it, right? Now people who live with anxiety, they don't have a decision, it's just there. And it's like you're trying to figure out how to turn it off. You'll do anything to turn it off.
That's a different level of it. Because that's what I'm looking at because you have extreme, right? And extreme is going to require an extreme effort with different resources, different doctors, maybe medication.
Yep.
And then you have minds that I don't feel like is extreme at all, but I still feel anxiety. Even though I'm normal, I push people, I'm the leader, I could feel it when I open, like I got off the plane, for instance, get off the plane from China. I felt immediate overwhelm of like, okay, I got a ton of shit to do. Like I got to get this contract done, this contract. I got to get back to the office. All these people wanting to see me on the court. People want evaluations. I mean, like my phone is going boop, boop, boop.
Yep.
People seeing you back. And then the first thing I do, I don't even realize it. I haven't responded. Like I went back to that. So
See?
for me, I feel normal. Like I feel like I don't really run into the extreme of anxiety of some people, but I want people to know that it's people that get up every day, that grind, that's disciplined, that we still have some type of normal
Well, let me tell you
anxiety.
something that's a little crazier though. So I feel like had a lot of success in my life. I've done a lot of firsts, right?
Right.
I've a lot of people take credit for it, but I think I could take the most credit for, Marvel being at least the structure of what it is. For Netflix, 2010, giving them a streaming window. For taking Overture Pictures off John Malone and turning it into a full-fledged studio. A bunch of different things we can walk through. But um, going to China and shooting a movie in the first co-production in China in 2006. People were like, well, why would you ever go to China for
Right.
anything? At the time, there was 1,000 movie theaters. Like, living in Dubai in 2001, right after
I can't
9/11,
imagine what
as a
Dubai looked
Jewish
like.
person.
Right.
There was nothing in Dubai.
Yeah.
It was like one street, living there right after 9/11. Like, but all these things, which are extreme to people, like they're like, and I was going to China then for 10 years, 2 weeks every month, back and forth, because we opened offices in Beijing and Shanghai, and we were the only studio to ever get a distribution license from the government. So now I'm sitting down with government world leaders, and they anointed me as the head of the China Film Production International for the entire government. Like, I have this video where
That's
they
huge,
came
bro.
out in front of the whole, like saying, this is our guy. That all came because of the anxiety that I've lived with. Meaning, because I go through so much fear and anxiety, there's no difference to me from walking from my couch to the car to the dinner than from getting on a plane to Dubai and living there, or getting on a plane to China to go shoot a movie when people are like, why are you going to China in 2006? Like, and
Yeah.
so the other side of getting through anxiety is that the things to most people that are like, that's so crazy, that's so extreme. It's like, actually, it feels no different than me walking to the car.
So you're saying that the feelings are the same.
But yeah, anxiety, when you feel this amount of anxiety, like I said, I used to say as a kid, it's worse than any physical pain. That's what I used to say as a kid. I can't explain it, but I'd rather experience physical pain.
So
And
I got a question for you then. So like for some of the people out there that handle anxiety through substance abuse,
it's funny, I was going to bring that up.
right? So like that may not be the right avenue for anxiety because if just I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, right? Because we feel two different types of anxiety, and it's pretty cool because it's two different perspectives.
They're
They're
opposites, but
opposite.
they're the same in
They're
a
the
way, and
same,
they're
but it's
opposite.
opposite. And then I'm thinking about throwing in a substance.
So it's interesting because in my life, I'm lucky that I've never liked
This is
drugs.
what it is,
You know,
because you wouldn't be sitting on this couch.
no. So I like, I've tried a couple things and I hated it every time because I hate the complete out of control feeling. So I never liked I'll call it things that, like, I can't smoke weed, for example. Like,
Right.
I don't, my head, I get, either paranoid, or I just don't feel like my brain isn't functioning right. I don't like any of the other kind of hard stuff. It's just, it makes anxiety worse. One thing is, where when I go through super hard periods of my life in the past, I would drink too much, and I would definitely turn to drinking too much. And what's interesting about it is, I look back at those times and I was like, oh, I was drinking way too much, right? And especially during the hardest times, because it's easy to, like, you know,
Yeah,
you
it's
get home at
natural.
night or whatever, and you're just stressed to the hilt. When I say stressed, I mean you're feeling the anxiety. It dulls the anxiety, right? And but what I came to realize is it's 10 times worse in the morning. So yeah, it was dulling it for me, and then it was making it worse. And so, you know, I enjoy a good drink. Like, I'm not, it's not like I don't
Right.
drink, but I've also realized it's the times when I feel the most anxiety are the times when I need to not drink. And so for those people who might turn to drugs or might enjoy drugs, it's not like to me, they're all a drug, alcohol, whatever.
Right.
It's the same. It's a drug. It's altering your brain. And I'm not judging for people who do that, but it's very easy I call it kind of self-medicate, right? To
Right.
self-medicate, you want to dull the pain,
Right.
right? Like when you feel anxiety, if someone said, take this, drink this, snort this, it'll go away, you do it in 2 seconds. That's how bad anxiety feels.
Right.
And so I can see how it leads people to substance abuse. And I feel
Yeah.
bad because if in the beginning it's making you feel better, and then you need more, and then you need more, and then you need more, right? And then all of a sudden you're an addict.
It's just gone.
Yeah. But I think that when people recognize that, it's ultimately all you're doing is escaping, right? And you're not dealing with the anxiety.
Yeah, you're not doing.
It's not going to go away because at some point in your life, you're going to have to face it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have to put one foot in front of the other. And what you're doing there is self-medicating. And I'd say if you're needing to self-medicate, then you probably need real medication.
Right.
And that's
Right.
where you should, like, a lot of people think there's a stigma to it. And I don't think there is.
I think the stigma is gone. From like 20 years ago when it came to, mental health and people being checked into like different type of treatment centers, and to be put on medicine was like kind of like, oh, you have to take those pills.
Yeah.
To where I think people are more educated now about what different people need for them. And I think this can really help. This can really help, the people today, because, when you look at anxiety and then you look at, okay, this person is not experiencing maybe a social drink where it's a laugh, it's a drink,
Mhm.
or you have people that maybe even smoke weed that like, they smoke in a group, they chill. They don't smoke because of anxiety. That's
They
what they
enjoy
do.
it.
That's
It's different.
It's different.
Right.
But when you use something in a way to like cope with it,
Then it's self-medicating.
then it's self-medicating. Okay.
Well, and that's, to me, that's like I said, I've been through it, and it's hard because you're gonna have to look in the mirror. And I've seen a lot of people with anxiety get to that level where they abuse it, and eventually it's gonna catch up with you.
Yeah.
And so I just say to that, there's no shame in like getting on medication to help with anxiety. Like none. It's a serotonin. It could be a serotonin imbalance. It could be some type of receptor imbalance, and it could just be that there's so many things we're finding out about gut health, like things that are in our foods, antibiotics that actually they're now putting a correlation between taking antibiotics and what it does to your gut flora and causing actual anxiety. So maybe as a kid, you had an antibiotic and it messed with your gut health, and that actually directly correlates to the serotonin levels and what you feel, that, anxiety. They're now saying actually that your heart has a similar neural network to your brain, and perhaps your stomach does too. So we don't know why,
Right.
but we do know that serotonin levels can affect it, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if you're turning to substances because you feel anxious, go see a shrink.
Right.
And see if you should go to a psychiatrist, not a psychologist.
Right.
And then the other part is like, just push through it.
Push through it and develop the habits of like maybe working out, maybe creating some habits that allow you to, it's a positive habit versus something that takes away from you. Like you said, working out, yoga, meditation,
Boxing.
small group
By the way,
boxing.
even home boxing. I have a bag at my house. When I
just
feel
punching the
when I
bag.
feel anxious, if I just put on my gloves and I just go do like 7 or 8 2-3 minute rounds and just punch it out, I feel a million times better by the end.
That's
And
really
that takes 15-20 minutes, and all you need is gloves and a bag you can buy off Amazon for whatever, $200.
Yeah.
And you just put them on, and if you don't know moves, you can pull up a YouTube video and learn 1 2 3 4.
That's really good.
Honestly, that's the best advice I could give, is if you have nothing else, buy a boxing bag and some gloves. You could be a girl, you could be a guy, you could be big, you could be small, you could be fat, you could be skinny, it doesn't matter. Just learn 1 2 3 4 5 6 on YouTube, and then just hit a
That's
timer,
really good.
3 minutes.
My advice for athletes is feel the fear.
And do it anyway.
And do it anyway. That's my advice for you athletes.
That's my advice for the whole world.
That's for the whole world.
Actually,
because you got to feel the fear and do it anyway. Because if you're an athlete, you're going to be exposed. You're going to be in front of
If
the
you're
cameras.
if you're anyone who's successful, you're a
You're going to
target.
be a target.
People are gonna come after you. And then just remember, who's actually coming after you? Do you care?
Right.
Like, do they matter to you?
Feel the fear.
I
I
think
love
we
it.
could rename it. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Feel the
That's good.
feel the fear, do it anyway.
I love
And
it, bro.
dare to fail.
Yeah, because that alone, it just speaks so much to me, because when I'm working with people to fail and get over anxiety, you have to feel the fear. You got to do it anyway. So
Yep.
feel it, embrace it.
You're gonna have the fear. You already have it right here.
You got to do it.
So you can sit here, or you can stand up and put one foot in
That's
front
for
of
the
the other.
good young athletes, because that's what keep the young athletes. That's the difference between peak performance and people that don't perform.
Yep. Are you gonna stand up, or are you gonna sit? You're gonna sit with the fear. The fear. You're gonna sit with the fear.
Yes,
Are you gonna do it, or are you gonna not do it?
that's great.
Thank you for joining us on Failure with my wonderful co-host who has such incredible insights. And
For our YouTube, if you guys on YouTube and you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe today to our
please,
channel. Also, make sure you turn on your post notifications. It's the little bell button right there at the top. So every time we post, you can get the notification of our posts, and drop comments below.
yeah, let us know what you like.
We want to know what you think.
We're here to help. You notice, like, we're not sitting here promoting stuff.
Absolutely.
We're here to. We want to help the world. So we did today because we had such an overwhelming request to talk more about anxiety, and so we've been through a lot in our lives, and
Yeah.
we have some access that we want to bring to help to all of you. So please, if you want to leave a negative comment, sure, go do it. I mean,
Yeah. But we're going to learn from that.
we'll learn from it, but make sure it's real. Don't make it a troll comment. But seriously, please talk to us.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Have a great rest of maybe till we see you guys in a couple days. And dare to fail.